So now I'm going to ask you about Modern Gladiators. I take it you've been watching the new series.
I have. I haven't watched all of it. I only got to watch bits, and really wanted to watch that first episode, and I love it. I love it. I love what I call our newbies. They're the BBC's newbies, and they wanted a real clear demarcation between the original show and what they've paid a lot of money to have, including the theme tune and a lot of the digital, which are just beautiful and so true to source. And I think as all-round athletes and beautiful-looking people, and they're spending enough time on letting the gladiators create their own characters and a whole load more on the contenders and their backstories. For me, it's class. I'm loving it.
Well, that's great. And the thing you said there about them as athletes, that's the first question I have, is when you look back at the original Gladiators, some of the people were bodybuilders before, some of them were martial artists, some of them were gymnasts. The modern athletes are huge. I mean, they're enormous. What's changed in training regimes that allows these people to just be so big these days?
One word, well, it's two words actually, but functional fitness. In the last 30 years, sports science and our knowledge of nutrition and how to get the best from an athlete and an athlete's body. There's a rugby player as part of the new Gladiators. A lot of them are functionally fit athletes in their own right. So to have a very big unit that can actually navigate its way really well around the Gladiator events is absolutely bar none with the new selected Gladiators. They had to be, otherwise there'd be a laughing stock. There's nowhere to hide in a tiny bit of lycra out there with a contender who's going to run rings around you. I mean, if there isn't enough motivation in that for you to go, oh, I better be on my game, then I don't know what. And you know what? They have risen to the challenge of taking on gladiator mantles in this day and age beautifully. And I feel proud, even though I'm not involved in the show at all, but I feel like, yeah, we set the bar, but they've raised it even more.
And going back to past Gladiators and comparing to, what was your favourite Gladiators game to play?
Without a doubt, Hang Tough. It was the most nerve-wracking. I don't know if you can see, but actually my legs were shaking whenever I'd strike out on Hang Tough. My little legs were doing counterbalancing like a spider. But I remember thinking, oh, they're shaking. Oh, my goodness me. And that was sheer adrenaline and sheer nerves. But also the wall. I became really good at the wall. I think there's one side of the wall I could do in 16 seconds at 32-foot climb, power climb in 16 seconds. That's pretty good going. So they were my two favourites. But again, if you remember, I said that very early on, my left ankle had got damaged again. So a lot of the weight bearing stuff wasn't anything I could do very well earlier on in the series been filmed. Things like dual, not good for me. I think I was on it only once, my little legs like this on the platform, my lever length not very good to even reach the girl over there. So I became better at some of the more agile and agility based events. Loved Powerball. It was the only team game that we played at the time, so that was nice to get a team where we could do a complete lockout of all of the pods because we'd had to kind of do tactics on it. But you know, there's some new games on the new show which I'm not fully around yet, and I'm sure it's going to bring the best out in the Glads, but ultimately in the contenders, and the Glads are just barriers. They're just barriers on each event for the contender to earn their points for their final bit. I just think it's a fabulous show.
Are there any games you've seen in the new series from season 1 or that are coming up that you look at and go, oh, I would have loved to go on that?
Yeah, I think there's one event where they're kind of like running around like a grid, and it's quite high up. So that was running based and agility based. I'd like to have had a chance to do that, only because I know where I'd have been able to take up corners and probably try to get ahead of my contender. Having said that, anyone watching Glad's going, oh, I would do that, I could do that, I could do that. No, wait until you get there. It's completely different with a studio audience and however many live cameras on you. Woo, very different.
And what do you think when you look back of all the games you played, which would you say was the most dangerous?
Pyramid. For me,
for the falling.
A doubt. Yeah, because you're playing vertical rugby on Pyramid and you're tackling and you're taking a body down at speed with velocity with an impact at the bottom. And if your joints are in the wrong place and they can't withstand that level of impact at that point of strike, the joint's going to go, not the crash mat, you know? So for me, that was a red flag, and it was ultimately the event that took me away from ever wanting to gladiate again. I just valued the quality of my spinal health for longevity to be able. I mean, sure, people well after spinal injury, navigate mountains in chairs and what have you. But I had the choice at that point, and I thought it was a very slim call between. But as I said, it would have been a hangman break, so it could have even been a fatality, which is not advisable. So I just took time to get out while I could at the time. But yeah, Pyramid was, and probably still is, a sort of health and safety bit of a hotbed. Health and safety officers like this. Please just let the whistle go. Let the whistle go. Let the whistle go.
And when you see shows now compared to before, you've got the shows like Total Wipeout, Gladiators before, and you see shows now that have to be big enough to compete and raise the bar. Do you think when you see those shows, do you think health and safety has increased? Do you think things are more dangerous now, or do you think they were more dangerous previously?
More dangerous previously. Why do you think they filmed Total Wipeout in Argentina? Health and safety and different law. I think to get health and safety on board with shows where there is damage limitation kind of can only be there to a degree. I mean, it is car crash TV, which is why people like to watch Gladiators. I think it's a health and safety department's nightmare. But the BBC have got it in hand. They seem to have approached it going, well, okay, this is part of the territory. What can we do about this to make it as safe a place for people to work, which is kind of the line I left on all those years back in 1996 to our health and safety guys, just saying, make this. There'd been a couple of spinal injuries. Nicky Claxton case comes to mind, where a girl had come off poleaxe and shattered her spine, where she was in a brace for quite a long time afterwards. And that was a contender. And I just remember saying to them, just please make this a safer place for people to work. It is a job. And giving the contenders and the gladiators the respect where respect is due.
You're someone who set the bar and you went through it. But if you could speak to somebody that is a young, early 20s person starting as a gladiator in a new series, what would your advice be?
Be good. Be very good. That's all I can say. I was asked quite a bit when we knew that the new Glads were going to be commissioned, and we're saying, what would your advice to a new gladiator be? Oh, just be good. Be really good, because those contenders are going to come in even better than ever. So if you can actually make your mark on not one but two events, if anything, be super good at all of the events. Lightning from our original team, Kim Betts, still to this day would be super fantastic at all of the events as she was back then. Yeah, be really good, and because there's nowhere to hide in your lycra. And if you do fail to a fabulously good contender, and credit where credit's due, make sure you've got some sort of honesty about you or quip to get out of it, because it's Samson and Goliath as well, isn't it, really, when people like to see the underdog winning, and I still think Glads is a bit about that.
Do you have any keepsakes from the original show?
I've got my original costume.
Have you?
I think I've got a couple left. I've auctioned off, and I've got one handguard left, the handguard of the Hang Tough fame. I auctioned off one, and I've still got one handguard, and I think two of my outfits, of which I'd be willing to let one go for the right price. And I'd contribute to, say, Mind or the Samaritans as well. Yeah. So that may come out at some point if anyone's interested. Do something good with it that reflects my later life too. And my gorgeous, amazing original Gladiator jacket with Jet and my International Gladiator badge. That's never going anywhere. That stays with me. And a cap. Which I think Paul Nodding's one of my producer friends, who still to this day is doing the graphics and a lot for the new show as well, has got his eye on. All right, Paul, one day.
Price is right.
Yeah.
Diane, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everybody.